COVID-19 in the country. It shows that Lagos has 74 cases, Katsina 33, Oyo 19, Kano 17, Edo 13, and Zamfara has 10 new cases, while Ogun, Gombe, and Borno states have 8 each. Others are Bauchi and Kwara states, 7 new cases each. FCT has 4, Kaduna and Enugu states has 3 each, while Rivers State records 2 new cases. On the whole, Nigeria has 6,175 cases of COVID-19, out of which 1,644 were discharged, while 191 patients died of the virus. President Muhammadu Buhari has made a strong representation to the state governors to work more closely with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 towards ensuring better harmony in the task of containing the prevailing health crisis. This was at a virtual meeting with the members of the Nigerian Governors Forum on the state of the nation. In the meantime, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says the present directive on easing of lockdown will continue for another 2 weeks with all the stipulated guidelines in place. The PTF said the directive for the extension was approved by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The eased lockdown shall be maintained across the Federation for another 2 weeks, effective from today, 18th May, until the 1st of June 2020. The 2 weeks extension of phase 1 of the ease restriction is also to enable other segments of the economy prepare adequately for compliance with the guidelines, preparatory to reopening in the coming weeks. For the Presidential Task Force, we share your pains, but our future is in the hands of every Nigerian, and future decisions would depend greatly on our compliance.
The Federal Ministry of Science and Technology says it has received submissions of claims from many individuals, organizations, and institutions that they can either cure or better manage COVID-19 using indigenous herbs and natural products.
Is to bring in the Nigerian Academy of Science to assess all these claims. And once they are assessed and recommendations are made to the ministry, then the ministry will now present this to the nation.
The House of Representatives has commenced investigation into allegations of financial inducement of $10 million to pass the Infectious Disease Control Bill.
This ad hoc committee has the mandate of the House to find out if, while the House is on a journey to rebuild Nigeria, to stamp out corruption at every level, if perhaps some members, be they leadership or floor members, are compromising the integrity of the House.
And as part of deliberate response to contain the COVID-19, First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, through her Future Assured program, has donated consignment of personal protective equipment and essential drugs to Yobe State government.
My intention to donate some personal protective equipment and some essential drugs to Yobe State government.
This support will be judiciously utilized for the purposes intended.
Waziri Blama from Borno State, northeast Nigeria, has been officially confirmed as the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. National Chairman of the party, Adams Oshomole, administered oath of office to the National Secretary at the party National Secretariat in Abuja.
We've established a tradition, a convention in the party that when there are vacancies, we inform the region, the geopolitical zone where the office is zoned to consult and forward the name to us. We have used this method to fill all the vacancies that had arisen for one reason or the other.
And that's the news highlight. The Good Morning Nigeria program, your favorite show, will continue with Kinsley and Jumai after this break. Stay with us.
Thanks for rejoining us. The new revolution worldwide is a shift towards knowledge-based economy using the digital environment, and Nigeria seems to be ready. Details with Kolo Mohammed on Business News.
Hello and welcome. Good to have you along. The global economy is revolving, pointing towards knowledge-based transactions, using the internet to drive business and financial transactions. The growing digital economy is now a major determinant of the GDP per capita of nations of the world. Experts say if Nigeria drives 40% of our 60% youth population to embrace the digital economy, the gains will be enormous.
Perhaps, Nigeria as it is we say in Nigeria we have 60% kind of youth population, 60%. So if we assume that maybe, let us say our penetration has penetrated, the use of internet has penetrated into Nigeria to the extent that maybe you have only 40% of the 60. Because you assume that maybe it's only the young ones that will be much more agile and they will be going into the internet kind of whatever. So if you have only that 60%, 40% of the 60% of the young ones, you will be getting about $2.9 trillion of GDP. So you can see how now digital economy will bear on the sustainable development of Nigeria if we are able to get it right.
The Nigerian equities market opened the week positively, and here is how. I am Kolo Muhammad. To stay safe, many thanks.
Thank you, Kolo Mohammed, for the business package. Newspaper review is next.
Now, Bayo Achobi is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Thank you. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, Bayo, good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper. Punch above the nameplate says federal government targets 5 billion jobs from 995 million euro agri program. Details on page 24. PhD scandal. That's the kicker. ONU overrules board, ICPC and others demoted FIRO boss reinstatement. That's on page 8. NSCIA, that's the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, urges Muslims to look out for Moon Friday. Details on page 12. Federal government quarantines British aircraft pilots and to apply full sanctions. That's page 21. And then the earpiece there gives you the numbers in terms of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country, those who have been discharged, and then the fatalities, plus the worldwide figures as well. Lead stories on COVID-19. Lagos, Kano, and Borno account for 52% COVID-19 deaths. That's according to the federal government, with 3 riders. Government plans lockdown in states and local governments with increasing cases. Nigeria not ready for full reopening of economy. That's according to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. And CBN and NNPC allocate 1 billion naira for isolation and feeding returnees. And the photographs on the front page there show the president who had an e-conference with members of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Coronavirus not a joke, Buhari tells governors. Details can be found on page 10. And then other headlines there. Kano adjusts federal government lockdown. Okes, Jumat, and Salah prayers. That's page 10. Autumn suspends 5 monarchs over Benue communal crisis. That's page 10 as well. And then others will take there. Federal Permanent Secretary queried for buying uncompleted building for 7 billion naira. Details on page 9. Kaduna lockdown. Court convicts general and Islamic cleric. And Chinese medical team concludes assignment. And they are stranded. Details on page 10.
Quite some details there in the Punch newspaper. Now let's come to the Nation newspaper. Just above the masthead, 1,180 ASU members fail BVN test. Teachers underpay tax. You find that story on page 27. Udiogu, Supreme Court verdict shocking, says Sage. 6 sons seek Carlos release. Find that story on page 8. Ganduje Oke's Eid prayers in Kano. ISIS lockdown. Find that story on page 8. Just below the masthead, Oshomole inaugurates Bulama as APC National Secretary. And the bold headlines there: interstate travel ban, curfew to continue for 2 weeks. With rider, nation not ripe for end of lockdown, says President Buhari. Schools, worship centers, airports to remain shut. And beside the headlines, economic package, reduction of interest rates from 9% to 5% for CBN intervention facilities, restructuring of loans to longer tenors for firms, 50 billion facilities to household and businesses through NISRA Microfinance Bank, NISA. And the picture story you're seeing there, moving on with life, students at a social science class at a Russian high school yesterday. The students are wearing face masks and gloves. They are also observing social distancing. CBN, NMPC to spend 1 billion naira on returnees quarantine. And just by the picture story there, we see the graphic illustration of the global cases of COVID-19 that are recovered across the world, including Nigeria. Inside the newspaper of the Nation newspaper, we see NCDC opens 26th test laboratory. National Union of Road Transport Workers President warns drivers. Yar'Adua family donates PPGs. Fashionati's daughter, suspect test negative. Shanwo Olu challenges clerics. Cleric general convicted in Kaduna. Cross River unveils 100-bed center and more on page 6. At the bottom plate of the Nation newspaper, federal government clarifies location of new colleges. That story is on page 27. And ex-NYSC DG Akpan dies at 27. That story is on page 27. Bio.
Well, let's start with the latest development relating to the COVID-19. The federal government has retained the current phase of the ease of lockdown for another 2 weeks. This means that the lockdown ease, which commenced on 4th of May, has lapsed yesterday and now is extended up to the 1st of June. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who is also the chair to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, explained that the extension is to enable the economy prepare and comply adequately ahead of reopening of the economy in weeks ahead. For now, the reality is, on ground is that there has been modest progress. However, the country was not yet ready for full opening of the economy. And therefore, still to be enforced, the nationwide curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., ban on interstate travel. And there's also need for all of us individually, you and I, to take full responsibility and ensure that we comply with the lockdown advice. Kano still has its lockdown for another additional 2 weeks. Meanwhile, state government and local government are also advised that their role is very critical. Security agencies have been advised to be firm, but yet to be civil and observe human rights details. Citizens are to respond by recognizing the danger to themselves, their loved ones, and the community if they do not comply with the safety advice given. So far, by way of statistics, 57% of Nigerians support the ease of the lockdown. Hand washing has improved, it is 7%. The use of masks is at 85%, and social distancing is still at a low of about just 55%. The level of information and awareness has been very high with all the campaigns on the electronic, print media, and the social media. That is put about 71%. This information was provided by the Honorable Minister of Information. Minister of Science and Technology has also indicated that about 36 million is being provided for as fund for research to look for cure. Dr. Ogbonaya Onu says that the Academy of Science is the one that will handle it. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, Kola Ologbondiyan, says that the Chairman Presidential Task Force of COVID-19 has no powers to make announcement on behalf of the President. An announcement for the easing or extension of it should be done only by nobody but by the President. But meanwhile, as at yesterday, 216 of our compatriots were reported in 15 states to have tested positive to COVID-19. This brings our national total to 6,175. Lagos is still on the high side, 74. Katsina had 33, Oyo 17, Kano 17, and Edo 13. Zamfara had 10. The other 8 states also had single digits. But meanwhile, 1,644 are the number of those that have been discharged. Unfortunately, we lost 9 of our compatriots, bringing death toll now to 191. Yeah. Oyo State, you recall yesterday we reported that the Oyo State had 31 positive cases, and 30 came from one single organization. That was on Saturday. On Sunday, that same organization returned another 8 positive cases, and yesterday returned 19. So that organization alone has provided 57 cases of the 137 in Oyo State. That's about 41.6%. In Cross River State, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control has praised the initiative put forward in Cross River State. Dr. Mobawale Oluwu, who led the NCDC delegation to Cross River, says that Governor Ayade had actually begun preparation as early as January, and this accounts for the low level of, in fact, as at date, there's no positive case of coronavirus detected in Cross River State. And she recognizes that Governor Ben Ayade woke up before the rest of the country, and there is a lot to learn from Cross River State. Meanwhile, the Cross River State government is working with the University of Calabar Teaching Hospital in coordinating the activities. In Kano, Governor Abdullahi Ganduje has allowed Friday prayers as well as Eid al-Fitr, that is the Salah prayers coming at the end of the Ramadan fast. This came in after a closed-door meeting with 30 clerics. And then Nigeria evacuees from abroad. The Central Bank and the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation have to contribute about 1 million as part of their social responsibility.
1 billion.
1 billion, okay. 1 billion as part of their social responsibility towards the processes of evacuating our compatriots from abroad, quarantining them, feeding them, and making sure that they are okay before they are let into the society. So far across the nation, that is what the state is. But there's still a lot more desire of you and I, by way of compliance, so that we'll be able to fight the war against COVID-19 and win it.
It's quite alarming, the figure in that Oyo State, report. It's quite alarming. In one office, 56 cases of COVID-19.
Already, I think the organization has been shut down, and it is to be decontaminated.
Yeah, which is the right step to take in the first instance, and for the public health experts to find out what actually happened on the premises of the company. What were the lapses that facilitated the spread of the virus amongst the staff of the organization? It is not just sufficient for people to stigmatize or attempt to stigmatize the company. There are lessons to learn from that, because if it could happen in such an organization, it might happen elsewhere. Now, but in terms of the extension of the lockdown, we're now into phase 2 of it. The Presidential Task Force, of course, has done a tremendous job in terms of seeking to coordinate containment measures as well as putting out public information for purposes of guiding everyone and then seeking to enhance personal responsibility along with community responsibility in dealing with COVID-19. But there is no question about it, and we keep seeing these reports every day in the traditional and social media. Just why is it that one critical aspect of it, which relates to the restriction on interstate movement, has been held more in the breach? Just what is happening. I mean, there's no, you and I cannot now take it upon ourselves to be arresting those who are in violation of it. Yes, there are reports here and there, the FCT task force, you see them arresting the violators of the restriction on interstate movement. At some boundaries, you also find law enforcement officers saying, okay, go back to where you are coming from. But is that sufficient? And there appears to be no deterrence. There appears to be no coordinated deterrence against these people smuggling that you find in different parts of the country, east to west, north to south, south to north, and so on and so forth. And the simple question is, look, if you arrest a truck, you know, an articulated truck or whatever it is, that ordinarily is conveying a permitted cargo, namely agricultural produce, and you now find human beings therein, it's so simple. Where are you coming from? It will tell you where he's coming from. What route did you follow? Who were the officers who manned those particular routes? How did you beat those routes? And then there are organizations or there are security agencies where those persons belong to. There are persons who were posted there. At the time of their posting will also be indicated. You don't need to arrest 1 million persons. Or you just need a few scapegoats, and they would know that this thing is not a joke anymore. Otherwise, what we find is that they say, oh, if you have 500 naira in your pocket, go to Gwagwalada, they will carry you in a truck from Gwagwalada to Lagos or to wherever you want to go to. And this thing is spreading. And you see the numbers.
I don't think it's just trucks. Even transport, they travel very early in the morning. They leave maybe Abuja by 4 a.m. and they're in Kano or wherever by 1,
night
2, 3.
buses.
Yes.
I see. I mean, so what is this?
Moving.
So
it's going to get worse now that the Salah is just around the corner. Some people would love to go home and celebrate the, you know, the festivities. But I think there
is a challenge here.
There is a huge
the big challenge is that is our attitude to order. We are most often than not, we exhibit a lot of indiscipline. Yes. But come to think about it, not that all of them are succeeding in beating security. They succeed in traversing across this because they use bush paths. They don't follow the conventional routes. And I think the FCT task force has changed their modus operandi. When people are apprehended, the truck drivers will be fined, and the latest development is that your truck will be impounded. So that will go, at least to some extent, to reduce it. But sometimes I have sympathy for those whose business is long distance travel. They commute between, convey passengers between states. For the whole period that we have been in the first phase of the lockdown, the second phase, and the ease down, and now we are now in the second phase, they have not been able to do anything. And the tendency is that this is what is subjecting them to
break the law.
Yes, break the law. But there's no justification for that, because there's no challenge that is worthy of risking people's life by becoming accessory to spreading COVID-19.
I don't know. Why? I mean, because it looks like it's a game. To say, look, you can beat the security network and then get from one place to the other, provided you are ready to pay the money. And the kind of risk that these persons are taking, I mean, you get loaded along with onions and livestock and all kinds of things, and with tarpaulin covering it. So why are you breathing? It's like, you know, the wet bags or people you find being smuggled across the border from Mexico into the U.S. Sometimes these persons are, and you also find it in Europe, these persons are in endless trucks and containers, and some of them suffocate to death.
Yes.
So first of all, there's liability. Dangote trucks have been identified yesterday. I saw it on television. The FCT task force said these are Dangote trucks that have been involved. That one was conveying people through Abuja. It said he was going from Zaria. He was arrested in Abuja. Some of them are going to Benin. Some others are going to Uyo. Some others are going to Lokoja. Just why can't we, enforce the law? If people don't want to enforce it, don't obey the law, then it is the responsibility of the state, state in capital now, to say, look, this is the regulation at this time. obey it, otherwise you face the consequences. Because people just think that restriction of movement is for the fun of it. They don't seem to realize that it is people moving from place to place that you find the spread of coronavirus in different parts of the country.
The virus doesn't move. We've always said that on this program. It doesn't move. It's moved by people from one point to the other.
Interest is the development from the IPPIS payment. The Academic Staff Union is saying that the payment they've made for their salaries for February, March, and April, they found that they have lost about 50% of their pay. And the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation has said that they found out that higher institutions were not effecting deductions like payee, pensions, contributions, National Housing Fund, and union dues and others. And the Academic Staff Union, their explanation is that where they ought to be exempted from it or otherwise, their contributions to that is optional. So the Accountant General of the Federation is saying, well, they have no mandate to allow the tertiary institutions abandon their responsibility to some basic taxes that such deductions must be effected from their salary. So that has been clear. But meanwhile...
I think that perhaps when all of this coronavirus issue is all over, because the ASU matter had been on for some time, maybe ASU should just be a parallel government. Set up its own rules, establish its own rules, how it seeks to govern itself, and that nothing else, should happen to it. ASU would now be determining whether or not a payee, that's to say pay as you earn, will be deducted by a source or otherwise, that it is voluntary. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's... and then you hear all kinds of threats of strike and so on and so forth. The Office of the Accountant General of the Federation also explained that there were some names of dead lecturers that were on the list.
On the payroll, yes.
And even those going on a sabbatical, they wanted to know when, the period of time they're going to be on sabbatical and all. But I think the IPPS is applicable to every worker in Nigeria. Are they not part of the workforce in this country?
They are. Just as has always been accepted here, you cannot tell your employer how he should go about paying your remuneration. But be that as it may, their alibi had been that they have a law establishing the universities, and that their law does not allow that kind of intrusion, which is an abuse of the academic process. But meanwhile, the Federal Ministry of Education says that about 16.8 billion has been paid to settle all the outstanding areas, and therefore there should be no grounds for any strike any longer. Let's hope that we have seen the end of strike in tertiary institutions.
We hope so. Now let's move to the editorial. It's also from the Nigerian Pilot, and it's talking about towards digitization of national security. I'm going to just read a little. The current security situation in Nigeria requires urgent deployment of technological innovations to bolster national security architecture with a view to enhancing protection of lives and properties of citizens. With daily upsurge of kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery, and sundry criminal activities on the highways and the streets and rural areas, the security concern of the country today has entered desperate mode.
Well, the editorial in a nutshell is saying that we are using conventional ways of tackling security. We should graduate to using digitization. And it says, sadly, that in spite of millions of naira that is invested, particularly in closed-circuit television, in Abuja, for instance, and I think part of Lagos, that the editorial described as a fumble. It has not worked. In fact, most of the cameras there are said to be analog cameras, not even digital. And whether they are functioning or not, but in true sense of it, if they were functioning, there would have been the potential to helping eliminate instances of crime in most of the cities. And with the latest development and challenges we are having with insurgency, banditry, drones elsewhere are the latest deployment that has been used to help the security forces in challenging the security. So the editorial has happened on the fact that we should abandon the old way of doing things and seize the opportunity of digitization. And then when we are going to do it, we must ensure that we do it very well, so that it will help modernize our security tactics and also reduce the hardship on our security personnel.
All right, Bayo, very well said. We'd like to thank you for being around today. I'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we shall focus on 5G and its controversies.
If you're just joining us, This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we'll be discussing COVID-19 and 5G controversy. There are still apprehensions as to the safety and security of the 5G technology. Abdusalam Jibrin put together this report to bring our conversation on this subject matter. Let's watch.
Recently, while the world is battling to contain the coronavirus pandemic, a conspiracy theory claiming that the fifth generation wireless network 5G is responsible for the spread of the virus began making rounds around the world. The theory appears to have first emerged on various social media platforms and have since gained widespread credence. The conspiracy theory claims that 5G, which is used in mobile phone networks and relies on signals carried by radio waves, is somehow responsible for COVID-19. This has prompted an increase in violence linked to the 5G conspiracy theory. In the United Kingdom, for instance, over 20 cases of 5G masts were set ablaze. The US has also witnessed a rise in attacks of phone masts, which the authorities say are connected to the COVID-19 5G conspiracy theory. Back home in Nigeria, the conspiracy theory has also taken root. Many have linked COVID-19 with end-time prophecies, insisting that 5G technology is part of a new world order where some leaders were trying to build a religion, economy, and government for the entire universe. However, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ibrahim Pantami, maintained that he is not aware of any research linking COVID-19 with 5G. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has also stated that there is no correlation between 5G technology and COVID-19. Nevertheless, as the theory continues to spread, scientists are warning that if enough people start to believe that COVID-19 is not real, they will stop adopting measures towards curbing the pandemic. This may contribute to its spread if they cease obeying social distancing and quarantine measures. Now, what is 5G, and are there components of this technology that are dangerous to humans? What is the relationship between the coronavirus pandemic and the new technology? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be providing answers shortly.
Many thanks, Abdusalam Jibril, for that backgrounder. Now, joining us to discuss this issue, we'd like to welcome here at the Abuja studios Engineer Kings Adeyemi, who is National Chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Engineer Adeyemi, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, we also have joining us from our Kano Network Center, Professor Mohammed Abbas Wade. He's a consultant radiologist at the Amiru Kano Teaching Hospital. He's a professor of radiology also at Bayero University. Prof, I'd like to have you with us this morning.
And from our Mina studio is Professor Abiodun Musa Abinu, Head of Department of Mechatronics Engineering, Federal Ministry of Technology, Mina. It's good to have you join us on the program.
Yeah, good morning, please. Yeah, it's my pleasure to join you on this program.
Thank you.
All right. We hope to also get another guest who will be with us via Skype. Once that is sorted out, we'll bring him on. But let's just have an understanding, beginning with the National Chair of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. What is 5G? I mean, and why is it in the news? 5G, so what?
Thank you very much. 5G is the fifth generation of wireless mobile network. It's an evolution from the fourth generation mobile network, which we all are familiar with. It's just an upgrade, like we've heard of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. And if you go down the history, this generation of mobile networks are usually spaced with an average of 10 years. So you see, every 10 years, you see a new generation of mobile network coming up. The 5G, like every other previous generation network, are not really different. The only difference is that there's an enhancement, particularly in the area of speed. The data speed of 2G is higher than 1G, 3G higher than 2G, 4G higher than 5G, and now 5G coming up much, much higher than 4G.
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer Kings Adeyemi. We would now like to go to our MENA studio where Professor Abiodun Musa Abinu, Head of Department of Mechatronics Engineering, Federal University of Technology. You know, we've had so many controversies. You know, when the mobile network started in Nigeria, they said the substations where the mobile mast where you know, there was a lot of radiation, it was causing cancer. Now we're talking about the 5G, and they're saying it's now related to COVID-19, and most of the people infected with COVID-19 are getting, you know, radiation from it. But it has been proven that even places without 5G are having people who have COVID-19. So let's look at the correlation between COVID-19 and 5G and the controversy just surrounding it and causing a lot of confusion across the globe.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for asking about the correlation between 5G and COVID-19. Let me establish one thing. Correlation is totally different from causation. There is no the issue about COVID-19 has nothing to do with 5G. 5G is not responsible for COVID-19. Let me just explain it. There are basically three issues that are associated with 5G. Number one is the issue of frequency, and then number two, the issue of cell site, and then number three, which I can call the non-technical one, has to do with the issue of infodemic and religiosity. Let us look at the issue of frequency first. 5G frequency falls under what we call non-ionizing frequency. What's the meaning of that? That is, if you look at our skin, now, it actually prevents certain things from getting to us. So the frequency for 5G cannot actually enter that skin. Or if it enters, it can cause any damage. Unlike what we call ionization frequency that can enter the skin and cause damage. So 5G falls under what we call non-ionizing frequency. And then the issue of cell sites, 5G may actually involve building a lot of small cell sites. So, but if you look at the technology associated with 5G, which we call the beamforming technology, the signal processing technology, you will also find out that that one has no effect per se. The beamforming will actually assist in removing some of those effects of having so much cell site. But I think the issue that has led 5G to or linked 5G to coronavirus has to do with infodemic and religiosity. So until we remove this infodemic or what we call conspiracy theory, we may not be able to really solve this problem. So in summary, there is nothing like causation between 5G and coronavirus, or what we call COVID-19.
Okay, Professor Abiodun Abinu of the Federal University of Tech at MENA, we'll come back to you, but we'd also like to pause Professor Mohammed Suwaid, who's a consultant radiologist in our Kano Networks, and I want to come back to Engineer Adeyemi. Now, while you were telling us about the evolution of 5G, let us get a better understanding of it in the context of telecommunication evolution, excuse me, in Nigeria, particularly mobile telecommunications. Earlier you said, look, every 10 years there is a new generation that comes out. Now, for us in Nigeria, GSM it's under 20 years. In fact, GSM will be 20 years next year. Now, before the advent of GSM, we had all kinds of mobile applications, Not 9 Not, which was very popular. Not 9 Not, that was about 30 years ago. So what was there in Not 9 Not, for those who were carrying it, Not 9 Not, very hot, if you put it, to your ears to make phone calls, was that 1G? What then became 2G? When GSM came at first, there was one phone. They said if you dropped it in pure water, that the thing will scatter, but you can always reassemble it. Very rugged. So on and on. So how do we understand this evolution to say, okay, as today, this is 4G, this is where we are, and this is what we are seeing. Before we now say, all right, we want to leapfrog to 5G.
Okay, thank you very much. As engineers, we pay so much attention. After safety, the next thing we pay attention to is efficiency. To see as much as possible that losses are minimized. And you will always have losses. What it means is that we will always go back to a drawing board. As you solve one problem, another problem comes. Now, the 1G, even before the 1G, there's what we call even the 0G. The 0G between 1940 to 1970, those ones are vehicular. They are usually in the vehicle, being carried about until when 4G came. Even with 4G, we all, wish we have it. But now, we are talking about when we started, about a span of 20 years. And here we have 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and then we are looking up to 5G. As if, why are we in a hurry? Now, we have lost so much time. Technology cannot wait for anybody. Telecommunication, from what we learn in school, we call it a network. Telecommunication network is one all over the world. Your mobile phone that you have, that number, you are the only one that has that number in the world. And you can move from this country to another country without telling them that you are coming, and a network welcomes you. So it's a single network. You can dial from Nigeria here to any part of the world. It's a single network. So in as much as we have lost time, we need to catch up. And let's even look at the age that we are. We're in digital age. We're in fast age. We want things downloaded, especially our youth, which are the majority of the people that use these mobile phones. Download speed, we want it higher. Why? For efficiency. I'll give you an example. In the previous generation network, let's say 3G, you want to download a video. It takes you time. It takes you time, you are waiting for it to be downloaded before you can do other things. Your phone is electronics. It's working. And then you are using it to download because you are in Nigeria, you are saying you don't have 5G or 4G. You want to download a video, a latest video, that in some other jurisdiction will have been downloaded in about a second or two. So you are flogging your device. Your mobile phone is generating heat. So time is precious. You have wasted time. You are overflog your device. So in 5G, you download that in a few seconds, and then you can use that time to do some other thing, and then save the battery of your device. That is why in 5G, your battery is designed to outlive your device. Because once you download, you've already downloaded what you're downloading, then your battery will be almost at idle mode. You don't flog the electronics. You don't overflog your battery.
All right, Engineer Adeyemi, thanks. I want to bring in Professor Abiodun again from Mina. Professor Abiodun, you listened to the explanation by Engineer Adeyemi. What more would you like to contribute? I just want this sequential growth for us to have a better understanding of it. And when you are explaining, please also bear in mind, because he was talking about speed and efficiency and all of that. We used to hear the argument that, oh, because we don't have broadband. What is the relationship between broadband and this 5G? They said if you have broadband, everything will just be okay. Now it's 5G that is being advertised as, if you like, the ultimate. So what has changed, from, as you said, 0G, 1G, 2G, 3G, and in less than 20 years it's now 5G. Maybe next year we'll be talking about 6G.
It's a lot for seeking clarification on the evolution and what has really changed. Let's look at it as mentioned by Engineer King Sadeyemi, that we have 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G. Let us just focus on the differences between 4G and 5G as of now. One is the frequency, and then because the present spectrum is more or less jam-packed, and we need to do a lot of things. In the news today, there was this issue about the digitization of our security architecture. We want to connect every item on the network. So how do we do that? It is by freeing or moving to another spectrum that has so much space that can accommodate some of these things. So frequency in 5G is a bit different from other technology. Though we are not saying that other technology will not be involved under 5G, but under 5G we shall be talking about millimeter waves and that. So we shall be able to download as many things as possible. Under 4G, to download like 2.5 gigabyte video or so, you might be talking about 16 minutes. But under 5G, we are talking about 6 seconds. Not only that, under 5G, it will also assist us in going forward in what is called Industry 4.0 or Fourth Industrial Revolution. Under Fourth Industrial Revolution, we are talking about self-driven cars. That is, cars that will be on the road and they will be driving themselves around. You are talking about Internet of Things. That is, we want to connect, we want to talk to our refrigerator at home, we want to talk to our TV at home, we want to talk to a lot of things. So there is need for us to actually connect more devices. So under 5G, this is really one of the things that is actually taken care of. If you look at the time space between 2G, 3G, as mentioned by Engineer Adeyemi, the issue of 10 years interval has been put into consideration there. But the most important thing, apart from the frequency and the connectivity, is what we call latency, that is delay. You want to actually speak to something, and then there is no delay as at the time you actually mention it, and as at the time it is received over there. Let's look at a car traveling at 100 kilometers per hour. That means almost 27 meters per second. So if such a car has a delay of just 2 seconds, it will actually swap off the road and cause much more damages and less. So that is why 5G removed that bottleneck, and we are talking about something like 1 millisecond latency, 1 millisecond delay. Not only that, we are also talking about the underlying, the technology there. Under 5G, we are talking about MIMO, multiple input and multiple output arrays and the rest, and we are talking about small cell site. So all these things will actually give us much more capabilities under 5G. And then the most important thing is that we have been talking about digital economy. The only way we can actually achieve this has to do with 5G. So 5G has a lot of advantages that we can leverage on. And as far some of the disadvantages being mentioned, on social media and the rest, up till date, and as World Health Organization also mentioned, there have not been conclusive research that shows any linkage that or anything that actually mentioned that is disease caused by EMF or so. So once it is under what is called non-ionizing radiation. I think 5G falls because 5G falls under that one, we will say that all those things mentioned as the disadvantages associated with 5G are not actually tenable under any research. And then most of the researches have also come into say that some of those things are not real and they are not provable using any scientific fact.
Professor Abinu, we'll come to you. Thank you so much for your input. We'll come back to you, but we have to go to Kano now, where Professor Mohammed Abbas Wade, consultant radiologist, Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, and Professor of Radiology, Bayero University, Kano. There's so much rumors, revolving around the 5G, and from the health perspective, because most people are thinking it has health disadvantages. So what we're looking at now, you've heard from our other guests in the studio talking about the progression from 1, 2, 3, 4G to 5G now. Now, from the health perspective, a lot of people are saying that radio frequency communication from the 5G network can cause health challenges, like cancer, like leukemia, and so many things that are happening. So what is your perspective on 5G, in relation to health in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Well, the relationship is actually not really tenable. The reason is because a 5G network is just a radio wave that belong to electromagnetic spectrum, really. Now, electromagnetic spectrum is divided into ionizing and ionizing radiation, right? Now, the is actually measured by by frequency, and the frequency determined by the wavelength of this radiation, right? Now, spectrum starts actually from radio waves, then moves towards this electricity. Then I think this microwave that we use in our kitchens, and then maybe the 5G network, and then the sunlight itself. That's how the frequency actually increases towards the ionizing radiation, which is actually the X-ray and the gamma ray. And so this 5G network actually is a non-ionizing radiation. It doesn't actually cause or kill cells in particular. It does not do that, right? The ones that actually affects the cells is the ionizing radiation, which is the X-ray and the gamma ray. So I don't think there is actually any relationship between cell death, that is COVID. In fact, what is being said is that the cell death caused by the radiation, which is actually maybe induces the decrease in immunity in us, or rather it actually causes mutation of the virus itself, leading to all these diseases that we are seeing. So as far as I'm concerned, this radiation that is from the radio, which is from the radio wave, it does not cause ionization. So there's no way it can actually cause the ionization of the cells in us humans, or even in the virus itself, leading to mutation. So I don't think there's actually any relationship between the COVID and the 5G network. Of course, I know that COVID-19 is actually a respiratory tract infection caused by virus that was actually discovered in Wuhan, China. But Wuhan is not actually the only state in China that actually has 5G network. I think Beijing, Shanghai, and even that state there in China do have this 5G network, and they don't seem to have this. This thing didn't actually start from this state. So the relationship that 5G and COVID-19 actually does not really exist, because it's a non-ionization. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't actually cause ionization. Of course, too much of everything is bad. If the network or 5G network is used inappropriately, it can actually be full. What I mean by this is, if the mask that produces the radiation is sited very close to the public, right, and then all the humans, and then they have they stayed for a long time under it, there may be some little harm that this radiation can cause. But this is a non-ionizing radiation. It does not cause cell death. It does not cause mutations that will actually lead to cancer formation. And so I don't think there's actually any relationship between the 5G and COVID-19.
Professor Suwaid, I mean, ignorance is not the preserve of any part of the world, neither is knowledge. But how do you get us to understand, for instance, the behavior in some parts of the advanced world where persons have actually attacked and destroyed cell sites that have been erected for 5G, in the UK, for instance?
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that there is this belief that there is this belief that it causes ionization, right? Causes ionization, and the ionization that it causes actually it can induce cancer if it does, but it does not. It's a non-ionizing radiation. It's within the spectrum, electromagnetic spectrum that is non-ionizing. So most likely people believe that this radiation from 5G can cause ionization, and the ionization it causes naturally, like the X-ray, which is an ionizing radiation, do actually affect cells. It can cause ionization in cells, and these cells can either die or it can induce a kind of proliferation, leading to cancer. That's uncontrolled growth, right? But the 5G network is a non-ionizing radiation. It does not actually affect the cells. It does not kill the cells or induce the change in signal in the nucleus, leading to proliferation, repeated proliferation and cancer, right? So I don't think there's any relationship. The people that are actually destroying the mast are doing it out of ignorance, honestly, because I don't think there's any relationship between 5G and the cancer or even the COVID-19 that we're talking about. There's none.
Okay, Professor Mohammed Abu Suwaid, we'll come back to you in the course of the program. Back here in the studio now, there's no smoke without fire, actually, and people are saying, Engineer Kings and Demi, that these things happen, so it's going to affect our lives, and 5G is going to be used to go into our homes and checkmate what we do and control the way we live our lives. So how is it going to affect our lives in the area of person-to-person communication, shopping, living in our homes, using the internet and all that? Can it be used to trace? Can it be used to trace us wherever we are? Because that's the belief. It's not about the health, scare alone. People are afraid that it might be a way to, control them.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing is that you have a choice. So many people are on 3G today. They refuse to upgrade to 4G, either because they cannot afford the phone or it's not their priority. When 5G comes, it's their choice. It's a choice to subscribe to it or not. And there are a lot of, let me just correct one thing. I've heard, usually the social media is a dangerous environment. Unlike our conventional media that is regulated. Who regulates the social media? Somebody can put an information on the social media, in few hours it will go viral. And people don't bother to find out. People don't bother. People will not even have time. They just believe it. If there is no truth, then you will take lies to the market. It will sell. And that's why the experts like us need to come out. We are sorry as engineers. There are some things we are so confined. But the time for us to come out of our shell is now. Because what is on ground is about our jurisdiction. Somebody has mentioned, they say somebody digging the floor and then the ground. with the belief that they are going to lay fiber. And the next thing, even in advanced countries, I saw that video. And they say, oh, you are putting 5G. We heard that 5G is killing people, and you're putting 5G. That's even in advanced country. What that man is doing is just laying a conduit, a pipe that will be used for fiber. Fiber network is not 5G network. They're not the same thing. So to tell you the level of ignorance of people. Now, if we start from which I didn't go to, the conditions that make up the 5G network. A download data peak rate of 20 gig per second. And that every human being on the network should be able to enjoy a minimum of 100 megabit per second. That's a lot. Now, we are in this era. This is the era we find ourselves. We don't have another world to live into. And don't forget, there is also a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. What you see that all these generation networks are bringing up are as a result of demand. People will complain to you that the speed of this network is slow. It means they want something higher. Now you give them something higher. Now, I said earlier on that your mobile phone, with that your number, you are the only one that has that number all over the world.
Except it is hacked into.
Okay, except it's hacked into. Now, that number attached to your phone has become your digital representation. Hardly will you feel any form in the world today that there won't be any provision, that there won't be provision for you to put your phone number and email addresses. With email address, it may be difficult to track you, But with your mobile phone is more or less your digital representation. People say, okay, we can't remember your data. Okay, they say the next day, they say, give us your phone number. And then you put your phone number and you bring out your details. Even at the airport, even in some small places that you go. TV. We are talking about smart. We have TV that are smart, that can take your picture and so on. So people need to be careful about technology. People need to understand how technology works. People don't bother to read the manual. They just switch it on and it's working. Understand the rule and play according to the rule. There's always safety. Once you understand the rule, then safety is in your hand. If you drop that phone somewhere and you move away, you detach yourself from that your digital representation. That's also your choice. As you move around, let's say Uber, you'll be seeing how the person in hand, you say, see the guy, see the taxi.
It's on his way.
See is on his way. It's not the taxi that you are seeing. It's the mobile phone. At that point in time, that mobile phone, that number represents that car, that Uber car.
Okay. Engineer Adeyemi, thanks.
Yes,
but we'll return to you. Let's bring in again Professor Abiodun Abinu from Mina. Professor Abiodun, there was a question I asked, and I said, look, what is the difference, if any, between 5G and broadband? I'm asking this question because at some point in Nigeria, we were hearing that part of the reason why our internet speed is very slow is because we don't have broadband. So they started digging up everywhere, laying cables and so on and so forth. Is the 5G now part of the broadband, or is it different from broadband? Just explain that first, and then we'll get into who bears the cost of the installation or deployment of 5G.
Thanks a lot for seeking clarification on the difference or differences between 5G and broadband. 5G is much more than broadband. That is just the simple explanation there. It has much more capacity than even what we can be talking about the broadband. But synonymously on a very low scale, the same problem that we try to solve with the broadband is just more or less the same thing in the minimal that we are trying to solve with 5G. But it is much more than that. We are not just talking about capacity. We are not just talking about the bandwidth. We are also not talking about the latency. So we are talking about connectivity and some other underlying technology that are so much, that are not even part of what we call the broadband technology or the bandwidth. So 5G, in a nutshell, is so much more than broadband.
I don't know. Jubai, see, let's get this clear again. Professor Abiodun, I want to still stay with you before we come back to Engineer Adeyemi. What, therefore, will be the policy implication if you say that 5G is superior to the broadband that we know, and we had seen a lot of investment in seeking to expand our broadband application and so on and so forth? Are we not, therefore, as a policy option, going to have to abandon broadband, on which we have made some national investment, and then get onto 5G, which is more efficient, and perhaps go all over again in terms of cost outlay and so on and so forth?
Okay, thanks. It's actually not like that. We are not abandoning anything. As I mentioned earlier, even with the advent or even with the deployment of 5G, assuming it is deployed, there are some areas that we still have to be on 3G, 4G, like the rural areas and the rest. And then there are some areas that we also be on 4G. As Engineer Adeyemi mentioned, all will exist together for a very long time. So in a nutshell, we are not abandoning the broadband, neither are we abandoning all other generational mobile network like 2G, 3G, 4G. As you are in Abuja town right now, there are some satellite towns very close to Abuja that are still on 2G and 3G. So we are not abandoning broadband, we are not abandoning 4G, we are not abandoning 2G also. So all, for a very long time, we coexist. And then it actually depends on choice. And then if you want to use 5G, you just upgrade or change your some phones and do that. So bottom line, sir, we are not abandoning broadband, we are not abandoning 4G. We are only making superior technology with better facilities, with better connectivity, with very low latency available. And we are also, as explained by Engineer Adeyemi, that when you order Uber and the rest, you will see the car coming or the taxi coming as digital identifier. We are now talking about having a lot of digital objects, and we want to see all of them. As you are in the studio now, you may want to identify, or you may want to know the condition of your house, check the security, do some other activity. So that one comes under identification or identifier. So we are providing identifier to a lot of items under 5G. So that is just what I can really explain as part of the differences between broadband. Broadband, we have to do about the bandwidth and that, but as far identifier and the rest, we are talking about 5G. And there's some and then some other possibilities that are not even included in the previous generational mobile network.
Professor Abinu, thank you so much. We'll come back to you in the course of the program. Back here in the studio, Engineer Kings Adeyemi, 5G is fast, very, very fast. 4G is here, but how expensive will it be to run a 5G for a country like Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, maybe I can shed light a little bit on broadband.
Yes.
3G promised us broadband. And we all look at it, wow, is it possible 2 megabits per second? Sometime around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. I keep on checking the speed. At the point I got a speed of almost 70 megabits per second download. When 4G came, it gives us the reality. We had a taste. The 3G, talking about broadband, is just, we perceive it. Now, 4G gave us a taste of it. Now we have tasted it, and we don't want to let it go. And 5G is saying, okay, you see, we play around with so many vocabulary. So 5G is saying, okay, it's going to call it enhanced mobile broadband. And of course, it's really enhanced. When we are talking about a network, a base station, having the capacity of 20 gigabit per second, do not dedicated to individual. Individual has minimum of 100 megabit per second. But let's say around in the night, around 3 a.m., the capacity may be free. Then I can download even up, the speed can go as high as 10 gigabit per second. Now, the 5G, the previous network has always focused on users. Users who want to use this one. But 5G has gone beyond that, because 5G is a pedestal for 6G. 6G will come earlier than expected because the journey had started. Now, it looked beyond human beings and look into machines. That's why you have machine-to-machine communication. That's why you have a connection density of 1 million devices per kilometer square. I did the calculation, which means in a radius of about 570 meters, you can have 1 million devices to be connected at any point in time. Such network can be called a 5G. Why so much connections? Because even as we speak now, let's look at that. Many of us carry 2 phones. Our digital watches, our Bluetooth, our iPad, our laptop, and some other things. They are all connected. So I, as an individual, I have about 5 devices connected. Now, the global experts are saying, come, in 2025 is going to be a major date, that we are looking at 100 billion connections, of which 10 billion, because we look at the population of the world, the progression, that 10 billion human beings should have capacity for connection. And 90 billion devices to be connected, which means now in your home, your camera at home, your pump, your fuel level. So 5G is an era of multiple interconnection. Devices speaking to themselves. And what does that mean? Because you asked about the cost. Economic of scale now comes in. Because you have more volume. What could have been the barrier? Standard has come to take care of it. So it's a single network. Whatever you buy there, in whichever country, whichever part of the world, you can always use it anywhere. So economic of scale comes in. And what that means is that the price is good, the unit cost will be crashed.
Unit cost of what?
The unit cost of the devices.
What?
The devices
but
to be connected.
Not the unit cost of data, because data is still very expensive.
Yes, I'm looking at
See, okay.
data.
Is,
Yes.
you know,
Okay.
You have,
Will it be affordable?
when you load, if you load this thing on your phone, the short while is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we have had to discuss with
Let
What's
me
an implication here?
because you are mentioning all these advantages now, very sweet, and then somebody will just load. I mean, Nigerians who are watching, they will just load 2,000. Just hold on, engineer. They will just load 2,000 within 3 days. It's gone. No. You lose another 3,000 within 2 days. It is gone. So it's very sweet. All the things are connected. So who will bear that cost? You know, it's tell us.
Let me come in there. I have said choice. It's your choice. You see, some people.
I still don't.
Some people. I'm coming. Some people try to circumvent it by doing what? Switch off your data. Switch off your data connection. It's your choice. But the problem with that is this. It's just like when you are in a house and you say, oh, there are mosquitoes outside. Let's close the door. You close the door. But there are some mosquitoes that pinch already perched on the door. They are there. As soon as you open the door, they will come in. You see, many of us, that's why we need 5G. So I don't want to talk about the technology. You see, many of us, we've downloaded so many things, apps on our phone. You see this, you download it. You see that, you download it. And they drain data. They want those apps want to survive. They want to be alive. So when you on your data connection, those mosquitoes by the door, they are the first sets to come in. Then you start seeing some that are already getting ready to be updated.
That's what the 5G will do now.
No, I'm not talking of 5G. I'm not talking of now.
Yes.
Okay. Now, even the economic of scales will come in. Take, for example, you know, the unit cost when GSM came, 15 naira per minute. Let's say 15 naira per minute. 50 naira per minute then and 50 naira per minute now are not the same.
What's the difference?
The difference is because of inflation. Time value of money sets in. The same figure 50, but the values are not the same. So, you see, as we go on...
It was Globacom that introduced per second billing. Because the others said that it wasn't possible, they were just taking our money.
What I'm trying to bring in is the time value of money. And as you go on, the data, the unit price will come down. Don't forget that when something is new, the price is usually high. When a new product comes to market, because it's not abundantly available, the power of demand and supply. But as the supply becomes abundant, the price comes down. Even the data will also come down.
Okay, Engineer King Sade, thank you very much. And indeed, the other guests in Mina and our Kano Network Centers. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the conversation. All right, you're welcome back, and still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching here on the network service of the NTA. Let's go back to our Kano Network Center, where we still have Professor Suwaid, is a consultant radiologist at the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, as well as also Professor of Radiology at Bayero University. Professor Suwaid, earlier you were taking off the sources of radiation, and you mentioned at least two of them, gamma rays and the more popularly known X-ray. What are the other sources of radiation that humans should try as much as possible to avoid? And in particular, with regard to cell sites, you'll find that there are a number of cell sites located sometimes in residential areas. Are these potentially harmful? And if so, what is the advisable distance, between those cell sites and residential locations?
Thank you very much. Like I initially said, this radio wave 5G actually belongs to a spectrum, and the spectrum is such that there is ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Now, the radio wave, which the television, the radio we use, the remote control we use for television, the microwave, and even the 5G network we're talking about belongs to non-ionizing radiation. Now, funny enough, even the ultraviolet rays from the sun has actually a higher frequency than even the 5G network that we're talking about. So if there is even going to be an effect, then most likely the ultraviolet rays from the sun will even cause more effect on human cells than even the 5G network. On the ionizing radiation we're talking about is the X-rays and the gamma rays. But even the X-rays and about they're actually being used medically. The appropriate usage actually allows to use them and get beneficial results. Like the X-rays that we use in the hospitals, we make sure that we use very minimal radiation and get that will actually end up helping us to make diagnosis. Now, the mask that we actually put these radiation devices, even the satellite dishes that we actually put, are actually source radiation. They are non-ionizing radiation, but if they happen to be very close to the people, the radiation really correct. The rate of radiation is directly inversely related to the distance. So most of these matter are actually very human. And such will not be in us and it affects us.
We're sorry, we seem to lose contact with Kanu. Well, back here in the studio, we have a number of tweets that came in. I would like to take them so that our guests will respond to it. I'll begin with Dele Jack Solomon. In an attempt to protect themselves and other people, actually making things worse by rejecting the science and communication technology that is surely needed in times like this. During this pandemic, it is of utmost importance to stay cool-headed and distinguish between real versus illusion patterns using the principles of logic, reason, and science. Nothing more, nothing less.
Chris Simeon tweets, according to him, in South Korea, over 5 million subscribers are using 5G networks and COVID-19 cases are less there. Electromagnetic ray or radiation from 4G or 5G can only affect the cells in human body and cause cancer. COVID-19 is not caused by 5G networks.
And Mark Ayako tweets, it is superfluous and an act of infamy for some people to connect 5G and COVID-19. I may not be an expert in that regard, but common sense tells us that there is really conspiracy theory formulated by agents of destruction and magnomaniac pimps whose aim is retardation of the process.
Festus Akimboye, well, there is no link between COVID-19 and 5G. Nigerians must stop submerging their minds in the baseless conspiracy theories that have become very popular online. Sadly, some anti-5G activists have been vandalizing this critical telecommunication infrastructure, and that's a shame.
And Mobola Babs tweets, 1G came, no noise. 2G was here, no noise. 3G debuted, no noise, also same as 4G. So why should 5G cause brouhaha? Those speaking against 5G are speaking from the angle of ignorance. It's as simple as that.
Now, Nandam Wuyep tweets, the issue is spreading as far as the virus itself. Perhaps we are only looking at it from one particular angle. However, the case is, may God help Nigeria and Nigerians. So exactly what do you want to say?
And Bashir tweets, connecting 5G with the onset of COVID-19 is one of the most ridiculous conspiracy of the 21st century. Most appalling is the level of ignorance exhibited globally by seeing it as a possibility. If conspirators had connected 5G with breach of privacy, it will have made more sense.
Mike, that's the Twitter handle. It says the WHO, that's World Health Organization, has said that COVID-19 is a respiratory disease. The organization has maintained that the virus cannot travel on radio waves or mobile networks. COVID-19 is not caused by 5G network.
And Cecilia Okoroma tweets, in life, we all know that change is constant. Therefore, the country that developed 1G technology will continue to research, develop, and move from 1, 2, 3, 4, and to 5G, where the world is heading to. That is causing so much scare. The talk is that a lab in China developed COVID-19.
Well, that's also part of the conspiracy theory about a lab developing coronavirus in Wuhan. Onyebuchi Ezenwa tweets, countries like Iran have over 122,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and they don't have 5G. Now, although higher frequency radiation of this spectrum does pose dangers, COVID-19 and 5G are two parallel lines.
Which will never meet, they said. And Ibrahim Abdusalam Bello tweets, well, this might not be completely false because in every rumor there's an element of truth. So more so now that the eyebrows are being raised in some developed climes too, 5G network could have its own effect on our health. I want to believe it isn't the sole causative factor for COVID-19.
Ben Ward, that's the handle. It says, what is clear is that 5G can provide download speeds of up to 10 gigabytes per second, which is much faster than most existing wireless and home broadband connections. Now, cable company home broadband plans often start at 100 megabytes per second, a fraction of what's possible with 5G.
And Clifford Agugusi tweets, instead of wasting time rationalizing conspiracy theories around 5G and connection with the coronavirus pandemic, the science community should return to the drawing board and etch new generation technologies in the curricula in our schools.
All right, now those are the twists that we can accommodate in the meantime. Let's return to Professor Abiodun Abino, who is head of the Department of Mechatronics Engineering at Federal University of Technology in Mina. Professor Abino, thank you very much for the perspectives that you have provided to this conversation. But tell us something. Are we consumers or potential consumers of 5G, or are we also contributory to the intellectual development of the 5G technology that is being unfolded? In other words, what's our role in all this 5G? Are we just waiting for it to come and then we'll be analyzing?
Okay, thanks for seeking clarification on our roles in this 5G technology. In Nigeria, our academia, we are seriously contributing to the development of 5G. Even just about 2 months ago, NCC was also sponsoring stakeholders or sponsored stakeholders engagement on 5G. We have a lot of researches ongoing and some that have been completed on the issue of 5G. During this talk, we actually mentioned about vehicle-to-vehicle communication or autonomous vehicles on the road. So there are a lot of work that have been done, even at the level of Federal University of Technology regarding how you can drive, how your car, as you are driving along the road, will be informing you about potholes, about bumps along the road, and then can take decision by itself on your behalf. So we are not only consumers, we are also contributing massively to the existing literature and the technology involving 5G. I know for some other colleagues in other universities that are working on beamforming, and I know about some that are working on MIMO technology, and I also know about some that are even looking behind 5G and 6G. There is something around behind 7G that we call visible light communication technique that has to do with Wi-Fi, that is using the bulb and the light to communicate and transmit data. So in a nutshell, Nigerians are not only users, but they are also contributing in various aspects to 5G development in the world.
Still staying with you, and you know, the security of any nation is non-negotiable. And in our editorial, we're talking about digitization of, you know, our security. How will 5G be able to, you know, aid our security operatives out there?
Yeah, thanks a lot for asking about the application of 5G to our security architecture. Let me start like this. One of the advantages in 5G has to do with enhanced security over the existing generational wireless. So, first of all, we are feared about unmanned area vehicle, or what you call drone. Drone cannot travel so much far and less, but with 5G, we'll be able to provide enough security via unmanned area vehicle. And not only that, you will be able to actually do what is called signature identification, tracing, and the rest. So with 5G, as explained also earlier, you have your IP cameras around. You want to monitor what is happening along different roads, and then each one needs enough bandwidth or enough capacity to be able to do that. With the issue of 5G, you have enough capacity for every object or for every item on the network. So 5G will enhance our security apparatus extensively. And then we have also been talking about border control, border patrols, and the rest. All these ones will actually be taken care of under 5G technology. Not only that, you can do a lot of things under 5G, monitor a lot of processes, and then do remote control or remote monitoring. And then, not only that, you can apply a lot of artificial intelligence approaches on your system, and then based on the available bandwidth and the rest and the capacity in 5G, you will be able to deploy all this technology in order to enhance solution. So in summary, 5G will contribute immensely to the digitization and enhanced security of the country.
What will be the role of power in the deployment or utilization of 5G? Because all the advantages that have been sketched, they're also very alluring. But what will be the role of power?
Okay, thank you very much. Power is an issue which the engineers have also considered while designing the 5G. One of the ways of addressing it is that to see that devices consume less power. Devices consume less power. The appliances that you'll be seeing will be consuming less. We have started experiencing it even from some of our bulbs, that consume less energy because the energy are not there. And also, as I've mentioned earlier, the devices, the battery are so designed in such a way that they can last 10 to 15 years. Then, because small cell sites will be coming up. Okay, maybe I should just give an history short one to that. We always ask for more. Like you have a bucket of water, maybe 100 liters of bucket of water. You have a pipe that the water that will come in will only come 1 liter, let's say, per minute, which means for that bucket to be filled up, you will have to wait. As long as that single pipe, you have to wait for 100 minutes. What are the other ways? There are other ways. Okay, let's put more water. Like in a big tank, as the water is going down, the pressure also goes down. So let's put more water inside the tank. That is, empower the base stations to have so much capacity so that the pressure can be more. Alternatively, you can also add another pipe. But there are a limit of what you can do. Then, idea now comes in. What if we increase the diameter of that pipe? And that is broadband. We have, don't let me go too scientific. There are formulas that guide everything that happens. Everything that you see in nature, there is a formula that guides it. Now, We want more speed. That's capacity. Shannon said that's in his formula. He said there's some parameters you can play around with. One of them is to increase the bandwidth. If you increase the bandwidth, just like you are increasing the size of the pipe, then more water will be able to flow. In a short time, your bucket will be full. You move around. And the existing frequency cannot address that. Okay, we have to move. Let's go to higher frequency. That's where small cell sites come in, because you are moving into a new frequency, a higher frequency with higher bandwidth. There's no contention there.
Okay, Engineer Ade, thanks a lot. We've kept Kano on hold for a while now. Professor Mohammed Suwaid. Professor Mohammed Suwaid, we lost you while you were trying to explain to us sources of radiation, and so what humans should avoid, particularly with location of cell size. And while you take that up, just tell us, how hazardous are microwave ovens?
If I can go back to the first question you asked about the location of these masts, actually the effect of radiation actually decreases with the distance, with distance, in such a way that if this source of radiation are put far away from humans, their effect will actually be less. That's why if you notice all these high tension cables, it's advised that houses should not be built under them. The same thing with all this mast. If this mast I normally put high up, and once they are high up, the effect of radiation actually to the populace that are beneath them is actually less. So it is always better for this mast or source of radiation to be placed far away from the human populace or the where people are. Now, talking about the microwave oven, it actually uses radiation, even though it's also a non-ionizing radiation. But I think the cover actually is actually stops the radiation from coming out and even affecting whosoever is using it. So it's actually very safe to use, and it's not actually going to be any injurious to anybody using it.
Briefly, we're running out of time. How will 5G enhance the health sector in Nigeria?
Wonderful. Just like I have been talking to you now, had it been maybe we are using 5G now, the network wouldn't have been a problem. So the same thing with hospitals, actually, right? Like in the department I work in radiology department. We deal with a lot of images, and sometimes we do see images that are new to us, or we want to actually have a second opinion on what we have seen. With all this 5G network, we'll be able to send these images to wherever in the world and talk to our colleagues all over the world and ask them to actually guide us on things that we don't understand. Even surgeries, while doing surgery, there can be connection between the theater right here in Nigeria and maybe in US, and there can be discussion between the doctors there, whereby they can be guided on how to actually attend to certain surgical situations. So 5G will actually help a lot to have teleradiology, whereby images can be sent, and then telemedicine generally. Even right now that we are during this pandemic, I know that in Kano we do have what is known as e-clinic, because a lot of patients are scared to come to the hospital. I think there are some NGOs that have established e-clinic, and patients used to call and get to using the through phone or through internet. So I think this 5G will actually play a very significant role in medicine generally. Thank you.
All right, Professor Mohammed Abbas Suwaid, consultant radiologist at Kano University, Kano Teaching Hospital in Kano, and also professor of radiology at Bayero University. I would like to thank you for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria today. And from Mina, we were joined by Professor Abiodun, head of Department of Mechatronics Engineering at the Federal University of Technology in Mina. Thank you for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria. And right here in our Abuja studios, Engineer Kings Adeyemi, who is National President of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Thanks a lot.